There are moments that happen in public that no one is supposed to notice. The wine poured from a different decanter. The seat assigned at the wrong end of the table. The small, precise cruelties that function because they are deniable, because anyone who mentions them can be told they misread the situation, imagined the intent, failed to understand the context. Nessa Vielle had been living inside those moments for 2 years. She had learned not to mention them. She had learned to absorb them with the specific composure of a woman who understood that her worth in this pack was transactional and that complaining about the transaction's terms was not available to her. What she had not learned, what no amount of composure could have prepared her for, was the man at the high table who watched the wine being poured and did not drink, who watched her face instead, who drank only after she cried. And what that meant. Chapter 1. The Autumn Feast. The assignment came from the pack steward on a Wednesday. Not a request, an assignment, delivered with the efficiency of someone communicating a decision already made. Nessa would serve the high table at the Autumn Feast. She would carry the wine. She would attend to the guests at the eastern end of the table, which included 3 visiting lords and 2 council members from the southern territories. She accepted it without question, because questioning her assignments had not, historically, improved them. She had been in the Halvern pack for 2 years, which was 1 year and 11 months longer than she had intended when she had arrived as part of the diplomatic settlement between Halvern and her home territory of Vielle. She was the youngest daughter of a minor line, surplus to her family's political needs, offered as goodwill. She had been classified on arrival as Omega, which in the Halvern structure meant essential for specific functions, expendable in others, never to be confused with a person whose preferences mattered. She had made herself useful. She had learned the pack's rhythms, the hierarchy's specific topography, the names and temperaments of every person whose goodwill was worth maintaining, and every person whose cruelty was safest managed by invisibility. She had a gift for this, for the political geography of rooms, for understanding what everyone needed to believe about themselves and adjusting her behavior accordingly. She was very good at being invisible when she needed to be. The Autumn Feast was not an occasion for invisibility. The Autumn Feast was the year's most significant gathering territorial lords, council members, 2 delegations from the Eastern Reach, and this year, for the first time in a decade, the Alpha King himself. His name was Riven Aldrich Kasser. She had heard it in the week before the feast with the specific frequency of people who were either preparing or pretending to be unconcerned. He had not visited the Halvern territories in 9 years, which everyone agreed was significant and no one agreed on the significance of. She had been assigned to serve his end of the table. She went to the feast preparation meeting on Thursday and received her instructions, the wine rotation, the sequence of service, the specific decanter for the high table. She listened. She filed it. She went back to her quarters and pressed the serving uniform and decided the bruise above her left wrist from the pack steward's grip when she had been slow to respond to a summons on Monday would be covered by the serving sleeve. She did not think about the bruise. She thought about the sequence of service. Chapter 2. The decanter. The feast began at 7th hour. She had been in position since 6th. The staff assembled early for the high table service, briefed by the pack steward with the precise efficiency of someone who managed events the way generals managed campaigns. Everything had been laid. Everything had been checked. She had checked the wine. Not because she had been told to. She checked everything. It was her habit, the specific vigilance of a woman who had learned that things in this pack were not always what they were presented as. She had lifted each decanter and assessed the color, the clarity, the specific weight of the liquid inside. The decanter assigned to the high table eastern end was heavier than the others. She had set it back down. She had looked at the other decanters. She had looked at the seating assignment she had memorized. The eastern end of the high table, she had been told at Thursday's briefing, was where the visiting lords would sit. She had been told this on Thursday. On Friday, the seating assignment had been changed. She had overheard the steward confirming it with the head of house at the 5th hour. The Alpha King's party had been moved to the eastern end. The heavier decanter had been set before the seating change. She stood in the preparation room and looked at the decanter and felt something cold move through her, with the specific quality of understanding arriving before you wanted it to. She thought about what to do. She thought about her options with the same political geography clarity she used for everything. She could report it to whom, through what channel, with what protection afterward. She could refuse the assignment and be replaced by another server who would not refuse it. She could say she had spilled it, broken it, lost it. She could serve it and say nothing. She looked at the decanter for a long time. She did not think, "I will be brave." She had never thought in those terms. She thought in the terms of what she could survive and what she could not. She thought about what the answer to the note or silence question had always been for her, since the first time she had been asked it, which was a long time ago in a different house. She picked up the decanter and carried it to the feast. Chapter 3. The high table. She served the lower tables first, the way the sequence required. She moved through the feast with the practiced invisibility of a woman who had been doing this for 2 years present where presence was needed, absent from situations that wanted no witnesses, filling glasses with the specific efficiency of someone who had no margin for error. She watched the high table from the periphery while she worked. She watched the Alpha King's party settle into the eastern end seats, 4 of them, and Riven Kasser himself at the corner position, which gave him the sightline she had already noted as the one with the most complete view of the room. He was not what she had expected from the 2 years of stories. She had expected a man whose authority announced itself the way the Halvern pack leader's authority announced itself loudly, with the specific performance of someone who needed the room to know it was occupied by significance. Instead, he was still, dark-haired, the kind of jaw that had settled decisions in it, dressed without the decorative excess of the other visiting lords. He was listening to something his advisor was saying, and he was listening the way people listened when they were actually receiving the information, not waiting to respond to it. His eyes moved when the advisor finished speaking. They moved to her, not a sweep of the room, specifically to her, with the quality of attention that had already catalogued her before she had noticed him noticing. She kept her hands even and moved to the next table and did not change her pace. She filled the lower table glasses. She moved to the mid-table. She moved toward the high table with the heavier decanter. Her hands were steady. She had made them steady. This was the function she had been assigned, and she was going to perform it, and the choice she had made in the preparation room not to break it, not to spill it, not to remove it, but to carry it here had its own logic that she was still working out while she walked. She reached the eastern end of the high table. She began to pour. She poured for the First Lord, the second, the third council member. She moved to the corner position. Riven Kasser was not looking at the advisor anymore. He was looking at her. She met his eyes for one moment necessary. Professional, the brief contact of server and served. And in that moment she felt what she had been suppressing since the preparation room arrived fully in her chest. She looked at the wine in his glass. She looked at him. Her eyes filled, not from choice the specific involuntary response of someone whose body had decided to do what the mind had been managing, the betrayal of composure under a specific kind of pressure. She blinked. 1 tear, 2, the kind that came before she could stop them. She looked away immediately and stepped back from the table with the decanter held correctly and her face tilted down and her composure being rebuilt from the ground up with everything she had. She heard him reach for the glass. She heard him set it back down. She was 3 steps from the table when he said, very quietly, without raising his voice, "This wine. What was it poured from?" Chapter 4. The question. The feast did not stop. It was too large, too loud, too full of its own business to register the quiet exchange at the eastern corner of the high table. But the eastern corner registered it. She turned back. She looked at him. He was looking at the glass, not at her. At the glass with the expression of someone who had arrived at a conclusion and was verifying it. "A decanter from the preparation room," she said. Her voice was level. 2 years of practice. "Which preparation room?" he said. "The high table service room. Off the eastern corridor." He looked at the glass. "The other lords at this end," he said. "They were poured from the same decanter." "Yes," she said. "The mid-table." "A different decanter," she said. He looked at her now. The gray eyes were doing something she had not seen before on anyone she had served at a high table. They were tracking the accuracy of what she said rather than the performance of it. "Why did you cry?" he said. He said it quietly, without accusation, without the embarrassing performative concern of someone making it about her state. Just the question, asked for the information it would provide. She held his gaze. "I realized," she said carefully, "that something had changed between when the table was set and when I was serving it." "The seating assignment," he said. She said nothing. "It was changed this afternoon," he said. "My party was moved to the eastern end." He looked at the decanter in her hands. This wine was prepared for a specific seating arrangement. "I can't speak to intent," she said. The diplomatic answer. The safe version. "No," he said. "But you can tell me whether, when you noticed what had changed, you chose to continue the assignment." She held his gaze. "Yes," she said. "Why?" he said. "Not how could you. Not what were you thinking." "Why?" The question asked for the actual reason. "Because if I had broken the decanter or refused the assignment," she said quietly, "someone else would have been assigned." She paused. "And that person would not have known what I knew." He was very still. "You served it to protect the server who would replace you," he said. I served it because the alternative was worse, she said. She stopped. Say it, he said. Still quiet. Still for information, not performance. I cried because I understood what it meant, she said. That someone in this pack had set a decanter for this table before the seating assignment changed. That someone had information about where you would be sitting before the change was made. She held his gaze. I couldn't stop serving it. I could only. She stopped again. Tell me with your face, he said. What you couldn't say. She looked at him. She thought about all the things she had been composing and managing for 2 years, and the specific exhaustion of it, and the one moment where the composition had failed, and her eyes had said the thing her mouth wouldn't. Yes, she said. He looked at the glass. He looked at the decanter. He looked at her wrist, where the serving sleeve had shifted slightly and the edge of the bruise was visible at the cuff. His jaw moved once. He stood. Chapter 5. What follows? He did not make a scene of it. She would think about this later, the specific way he moved, the economy of it, the decision made and enacted without the performance that men in his position usually required of their own authority. He simply stood, spoke quietly to his advisor, and within 5 minutes the high table's eastern end was being quietly cleared, the glasses replaced, the decanter removed by a staff member who had been instructed from the Alpha King's position. He did not announce what had happened. He did not accuse anyone publicly. She was still at the periphery of the hall, not dismissed, not addressed, not sure what her position was when his advisor came to her and said, with professional courtesy, His Majesty requests your attendance in the side room. When you're able. When you're able. She noted the phrasing. She went. The side room was a small chamber off the main hall used for private exchanges during formal events. It had 2 chairs and a table and a window and no other occupants when she arrived. He was already there. Standing at the window, not performing the wait, actually at the window, looking at the grounds outside with the same attentive quality she had observed in the hall. He turned when she came in. Sit, he said. Then, please. She sat. He sat across from her. Your name, he said. Nessa Vielle, she said. Vielle, he said. The diplomatic settlement. 2 years ago. Yes, she said. You were sent from the Vielle line as goodwill, he said. The flat, accurate version. Yes, she said. He looked at her for a moment. And in 2 years, what has your position in this pack been? She thought about the safe version and the accurate version and which one she was capable of giving. Functional, she said. I have a role, I perform it. The bruise on your wrist, he said, is not relevant to this evening's events, she said. He held her gaze. Everything I've seen tonight is relevant to this evening's events, he said. The decanter was prepared before the seating change, which means someone in this pack had my arrival schedule, my intended seating, and access to the preparation room, and had reason to want me dead or incapacitated before I attended the council session tomorrow morning. He paused. That is the political problem. The bruise on your wrist is a separate problem, and I'm not conflating them. I'm noting that it exists. She was very still. How long? He said. She looked at her wrist. She thought about 2 years and the pack steward's grip and the specific arithmetic of being surplus and transactional in a place that was not hers. Variable, she said. Depending on the week. Does it extend beyond the steward? He said. She looked at him. How did you know it was the steward? I watched the preparation briefing from the upper corridor on Thursday, he said. I attend the events I'm invited to early. It allows me to understand the geography before I'm in it. A pause. I saw the briefing. I saw how he spoke to the serving staff. She absorbed this. He had been watching since Thursday. He had arrived at the feast with information she hadn't known he had. The steward, she said, and occasionally others. She kept her voice even. It's not unusual for the Omega staff. Something happened in his face. Something that moved quickly through the composed surface and was managed back, but she had been watching faces professionally for 2 years, and she saw it. Who assigned you to the high table service tonight, he said. The steward, she said. Who knew the seating had changed? She was quiet. He assigned you specifically, Riven said. To carry the decanter that had been set for the original seating after the seating changed. She had arrived at this conclusion herself in the preparation room and had chosen not to follow it to its end because the end was too large to hold and still pour wine correctly. Yes, she said. You were meant to be the instrument of it, he said. And if it had worked, you would have been the one at the wrong end of the investigation. She looked at her hands in her lap. She thought about the diplomatic settlement and 2 years and the pack steward's grip, and the specific geography of being someone nobody would believe over a beta official in a pack she had been assigned to rather than chosen. That was the design, she said quietly. Yes, he was quiet for a long time. Nessa, he said. She looked up. I want you to understand something, he said. What you did tonight, carrying that decanter rather than removing it so that a replacement server wouldn't carry it unknowingly, that is the kind of decision that costs a person something. You made that calculation alone, in a preparation room, in approximately no time at all. It wasn't. She stopped. Say it, he said. Same instruction as before. It wasn't brave, she said. It was just the only version I could live with. He held her gaze for a long moment. Yes, he said. That's exactly what it was. She looked at him. He was looking at her with the precise, attending quality she had been cataloging since the hall, and she understood what she had not yet named about it. He was not performing concern. He was not performing authority. He was simply present, in the specific way of someone who had decided to be present here, with this information, with this person, and was not managing his way through it. The council session tomorrow, she said. You came to attend it. I came for several reasons, he said. The council session is one. The reports from the Halvern territories over the past 2 years suggested a pattern I wanted to assess directly. He paused. Tonight has been more direct than I anticipated. She thought about what reports over 2 years meant. What it meant that he had been reading the territory from outside and had identified a pattern. You knew something was wrong, she said. I knew the indicators, he said. Pack health, Omega welfare reports, diplomatic status of bound settlements. He held her gaze. I wanted to verify before I acted. And now, she said. Now I've verified, he said. The side room was very quiet. The feast continued in the hall beyond the door, its noise, its business, the ordinary working of a gathering that had nearly been something else entirely. What happens to me, she said. It came out more plainly than she intended. The direct question, asked without the diplomatic softening she had learned to use. After tonight. When you leave. He looked at her. I'm not leaving tomorrow, he said. The council session will take 3 days. The investigation into tonight will take longer. He said it with the flat practicality of someone enumerating a logistical reality. And your situation is part of what I'm here to address. My situation, she said. The diplomatic settlement placed you here under terms that have not been honored, he said. That's a territorial violation. He held her gaze. You're not surplus. You're not a goodwill gesture. You're a person who was sent here under a binding agreement that required specific protections and did not receive them. She looked at her hands. She thought about 2 years of managing the pack steward's grip and the bruises and the arithmetic of being transactional. She thought about someone reading the reports from the outside and identifying a pattern. She thought about a man who had watched a preparation briefing from an upper corridor on Thursday and arrived at the feast with information and had still waited to verify before he acted. The cry, she said. When I poured the wine. Yes, he said. You were watching for something, she said. You had been watching the table. He was quiet for a moment. I knew the decanter was heavier than the others, he said. I had been at the table before the service and I'd noted the preparation. I was watching to see how the service proceeded. He paused. I wasn't certain of the intent. There are legitimate reasons for a weighted decanter fortified wine, special vintage. He held her gaze. I was watching the person carrying it. And I cried, she said. And you cried, he said. Which told me what the weight meant. Not a special vintage. She thought about the involuntary composition failure. The 2 tears before she could stop them. The betrayal of her own management. I've spent 2 years not doing that, she said, in front of anyone. I know, he said, that's what it told me. That 2 years of not doing it broke for exactly that moment and nothing else. He held her gaze with the precise attending quality. You cried because you couldn't stop it. Which meant it was the truest thing you'd shown anyone in this pack since you arrived. She was very still. She thought about the note or silence choice, and the preparation room, and the decanter, and the decision made in no time at all. She thought about 2 years of management, and the single moment the management had not held. I didn't plan it as a signal, she said. I know, he said. That's why it worked. Chapter 6. 3 days. The investigation took 4 days, not 3. She knew the shape of it from the periphery, the council session on the first day attended by Riven and the Halvern pack leaders, the pack steward summoned on the second day, and not seen again by the staff, The quiet, systematic review of the PAC's administrative records that required the presence of Riven's own council members who had arrived, apparently, with him on Thursday and had been in the eastern guest quarters, unannounced. She spent the 4 days in the kitchen wing, which was where she had been told to stay, which she did without complaint because the kitchen wing was the warmest part of the PAC house and had Pollen in it. Pollen was the head cook, 60, with the kind of face that had decided long ago that pretense was inefficient. She had taken Nessa's presence in her kitchen on the first morning, with the equanimity of someone who had been expecting something to eventually shift in this PAC, and was not surprised that the shift had arrived in the form of the Alpha King and a heavy decanter. "He asked about you," Pollen said, on the second morning. "The steward." "What did he ask?" Nessa said. She was peeling root vegetables because Pollen had put them in front of her and she had found it easier to have something to do. "Where you were from. How long you'd been here. Whether you had family in the territory." Pollen looked at her steadily. "He was told your family situation and your settlement terms and the correct answers to all 3 questions." "Who told him?" "The Alpha King's archivist," Pollen said, "who has been in the PAC records since yesterday morning." She went back to her work. "They're thorough." Nessa peeled. She thought about reports over 2 years and patterns identified from outside. "He was here on Thursday," Nessa said, "before the feast." "I know," Pollen said. "He came to the kitchen." She said it in the tone of a significant statement delivered casually. "He asked about the staff. Who had been here longest. Whether the Omega assignments had changed in the last 2 years. Nessa set down the peeling knife. "He came to the kitchen specifically." "He did. On Thursday. Before the feast briefing," Pollen said. "Before the preparation rooms were set up. Before anything was in place." She looked at Nessa with the frank, accurate gaze of 60 years of kitchen experience. "He was building the map. Before he needed it." Nessa thought about this. She thought about the upper corridor on Thursday and the feast briefing, and a man who arrived at events early to understand the geography before he was in it. She went back to peeling. She said nothing. On the 4th morning, Riven's advisor came to the kitchen and said, "His Majesty requests your attendance in the council room." She went. The council room held Riven, 2 of his senior council members, and the Halvern PAC's ranking elder, who had the expression of someone who had spent 4 days being found out and was managing the specific dignity of it. She stood at the table's end, not invited to sit, which she noted. Riven looked at her. "The settlement terms," he said. "Your original placement agreement. Do you have a copy?" "No," she said. "The steward held the documentation." "The documentation has been recovered," he said. "Your settlement terms required specific provisions: rank acknowledgement, protected status, assigned duties within your qualification level." He looked at the document on the table. None of them were honored. The PAC elder said, "The settlement was implemented in good faith. Any deviation, the deviation is documented in the PAC records," Riven said, without raising his voice. 4 incidents in the first 6 months, 8 in the second year, all involving the PAC steward and 2 additional beta officials. He looked at the elder. "Good faith is not the characterization I would use." The elder was silent. Riven looked at Nessa. "The settlement can be voided," he said. "On the grounds of breach. You would return to Vial territory." He paused. "Alternatively, the settlement can be renegotiated with correct provisions and a monitoring requirement." He held her gaze. "The choice is yours." She looked at the table. She thought about Vial territory, the minor line, the surplus daughter, the place she had been sent from as goodwill. She thought about going back to it. She thought about the kitchen and Pollen's frank gaze and root vegetables and the specific small warmth of 4 days in a room where no one had gripped her wrist. "What does the renegotiation involve?" she said. "A formal rank acknowledgement," he said. "Assigned duties in correspondence and diplomatic record management. Your Vial background qualifies you for that work, which the PAC has not been using." He paused. "The monitoring requirement means quarterly review by my council's welfare office." "And the steward," she said, "is no longer in his position," he said. She absorbed this. She looked at the elder, whose expression confirmed it. She looked at Riven. "The diplomatic record management," she said. "Is that a genuine function or a position created for the settlement?" "Halvern's diplomatic correspondence has been managed by a beta official who also runs the border patrol schedule," he said. "The conflicts of interest in that combination have produced errors in 3 recent agreements." He looked at her. "The position exists. It has not been filled because the correct person was being used as a serving staff." She held his gaze. "I want the renegotiation in writing," she said, "before I agree to it." Something moved in Riven's expression, the precise, Attending quality shifted into something she had not seen in the hall or the side room. Something more specific. Obviously, he said, and I want Pollen notified, she said. She'll be concerned if I disappear from the kitchen without explanation. The council elder looked at the table. Riven looked at her with the something more specific expression. I'll tell her myself, he said. She looked at him. She thought about the preparation room and the decanter and the involuntary tears, and a man who had been reading reports for 2 years and had come on Thursday early and had sat in the side room and asked for the actual reasons. She thought about that's exactly what it was, and the specific quality of someone who named things accurately without making the naming into a performance. All right, she said. Epilogue. 1 year later. The diplomatic correspondence position was real. She had confirmed this herself within the first week, when the backlog of misfiled agreements had revealed exactly the conflicts of interest. Riven had described 3 border negotiations with internally contradictory terms, 2 trade agreements that referenced documents which did not appear in the PAC's archive, and 1 territorial boundary notation that had been amended twice without the original being preserved. She had spent the first month on the backlog alone. She had spent the second month building the cross-reference system. She had spent the 3rd through 12th months doing the actual work, which was extensive, nuanced, and required the specific skill set of someone who understood both diplomatic language and territorial record management, and had, as it turned out, been developing both for 2 years in whatever context was available. She was in the correspondence room, her correspondence room, properly titled, with the formal rank acknowledgement documented and on file when the quarterly review visit arrived. Riven's council welfare officer was a compact, efficient woman named Drea, who came every quarter with a documented checklist and a frank manner, and who had, over 4 visits, developed a habit of staying 2 hours past the official review for what she described as contextual conversation, and what Nessa understood was genuine interest in how the PAC's changes were holding. The review took 90 minutes. The contextual conversation lasted until the 7th hour. He's coming tomorrow, Drea said at the end of it. She said it in the tone of someone delivering information that was not incidental. For the spring council session, Nessa said. And other reasons, Drea said. She picked up her documentation with the precision of someone who had said exactly what she intended to say. She left. Nessa sat in the correspondence room with the cross-reference system and the diplomatic backlog that was no longer a backlog, and thought about the spring council session and other reasons. She thought about the autumn feast and the heavy decanter and the preparation room decision and the 2 tiers before the management failed. She thought about the side room and say it, and that's exactly what it was, and the 4 days in the kitchen with Pollen peeling root vegetables. She thought about the quarterly reviews and the monitoring requirement and the welfare office visits, which had been the formal structure, and were also, she had understood gradually, the other reasons. The architecture built around a specific intention that had not yet been named directly. She heard his step in the corridor at the 8th hour, not his advisor's step, his. She knew it. She had been cataloging the sounds of the pack house for a year, and she knew the specific weight of his movement. He came to the correspondence room doorway and stopped. You're here late, he said. The spring council documentation, she said. The Brentford delegation's pre-session materials arrived this afternoon. I wanted to have them cross-referenced before tomorrow. He came in. He sat in the second chair, the one that had migrated from the corner to the table over a year of council-adjacent work sessions when he visited. He looked at the materials spread in front of her. The Brentford boundary notation, he said. Is it the one that was amended twice? Yes, she said. The original is now on file. The amendments are separately documented with dates and signatories. The Brentford delegation will not be able to claim the amendment history is unclear. Good, he said. He looked at the cross-reference system on the wall. He looked at her. She looked back. Drea's report, he said. She sent it this morning. PAC welfare indicators at 12 months. I know what they say, she said. I contributed to 3 of the categories. The overall welfare improvement is the most significant in the territory's recorded history for a 12-month period, he said. The steward is gone, she said. And 2 of his associates. The structural cause was removed. Indicators improve when causes are addressed. The cross-reference system, he said. The diplomatic backlog. The 3 border agreements corrected. He held her gaze. Those are also contributing factors. Yes, she said. He was quiet for a moment. He looked at the correspondence room, the organized stacks, the flag list, the wall reference she had built for the incoming council delegates, the secondary documentation file that had been non-existent a year ago. Nessa, he said. Yes, I've been reading reports from this territory for 2 years, he said. I came on a Thursday and stood in an upper corridor and came to the kitchen and identified the geometry before I walked into the feast. He paused. I have been careful. In the approach. Deliberately careful, because the situation required care and because you had been in a position where carelessness was what you had primarily received. She looked at her hands on the documents. I want to stop being careful, he said, in the specific sense of managing the approach. He held her gaze with the precise attending quality fully present. No management. I'm not asking for something large tonight. I'm telling you what the direction is, so that when I ask for something, you have the full information. She thought about the preparation room. The decision made in no time at all. The arithmetic of the only version she could live with. She thought about a year of quarterly reviews and a man who came to spring council sessions for other reasons. She thought about a single moment of failed management and what it had been seen for not weakness, not exposure, but the truest thing she had shown anyone in 2 years. The direction, she said. Is that what you're calling it? I thought it was more accurate than alternatives, he said. She looked at him, the gray, steady eyes. The jaw that had settled decisions in it. The man who had read 2 years of reports and arrived on a Thursday and built the map before he needed it. She thought, I have been building the map of this for a year. She thought, the map is accurate. The Brentford pre-session materials, she said. I need to finish the cross-reference tonight. I know, he said. You can stay, she said, if you want to review the border notation. He looked at the documentation on the table. He looked at her. Yes, he said. He pulled the border notation toward him. Show me the First Amendment. She showed him. They worked through the spring council documentation in the correspondence room, with the evening doing its ordinary business outside the window and the pack house quiet around them. And she told him about the First Amendment, and the Second, and the original notation, and the specific discrepancy that the Brentford delegation would try to use, and he listened the way he always listened, with full attention, asking the questions that wanted the actual information, and the room was exactly the right size for 2 people doing work that mattered. She thought about the autumn feast, and the wine and the tears she had not planned to cry. She thought about all the things that had followed from a single moment of honest failure. She thought, sometimes the management breaks at exactly the right moment. She thought, and the person watching is exactly the person who should see. The cross-reference was complete by the 10th hour. She looked at it. She looked at him. Tomorrow, she said. The Brentford session. 3rd hour, he said. He stood. He looked at her for a moment with the open attending face. You'll be there. It's my documentation, she said. Yes, he said. It is. He left. She sat in the correspondence room with the completed cross-reference in the year of work and the direction named plainly by a man who had been reading her territory for 2 years before he walked into it. She thought, the only version I could live with. It had always been the same answer. It had simply, this time, led somewhere she had never thought to look, somewhere that looked, increasingly, like the right size.